Honorable Keith Mitchell.
I address you yet again on the serious health challenges presented by the emergence of COVID-19. This time compounded by some incomprehensible behaviors. Glued to our television screens and other sources of information, we have seen how this pandemic has gripped the world. First in Wuhan, China, then to countries in Europe, to Australia, to the United States. Almost every country in the world have reported cases of this virus. Yet we seem not to fully grasp the magnitude of the threat before us. That is some of us. We have seen in the most graphic detail how healthcare systems in the most developed and advanced countries of the world have been falling apart and collapsing under the weight of this virus. Still, some of us fail to recognize or appreciate the gravity of the situation facing us. We have witnessed dozens of patients lying in corridors and hospitals in Spain, and some of us continue with business as usual. Hundreds dying in Italy, funerals suspended, and the army called in to remove bodies. But some of us totally ignore this eventuality. Fellow Grenadians, our country and other countries around the world are facing this unprecedented public health threat. On Sunday, we discovered our first laboratory-confirmed case of COVID-19. This patient is now stable, and the healthcare officials continue to monitor her condition. The implication of this disease in our population is that urgent and immediate action is required to identify and curb the spread. In our attempt to do so, we have closed our borders. Our Ministry of Health has called for change in our cultural and social practices. It has introduced measures like social distancing and appeal to the reasoning of people's consciousness. Sadly, dear fellow citizens, many of us have ignored these appeals. Grenadians returning home and other visitors to our shores, some of them have failed to comply with voluntary requests to self-quarantine, and people can be seen up and down the country carrying on as though these are normal times, but they are not. At this stage, with the presence of this disease circulating within the population, and based on medical and scientific projections, if we fail to give effect to the serious steps required to contain, curtail, identify, and isolate this virus, Grenada will pay a significant price. Moreover, many are using this crisis as an opportunity to play politics or to peddle rumors, thus causing unnecessary fear and panic among the population. Sisters and brothers, fellow Grenadians, Carriacou, Petite Martinicans all, this is not the time. There are no heroes in war, and make no mistake, this is indeed a war, and the enemy is COVID-19. Again, I urge you to listen to the official sources such as the government of Grenada, and in particular the Ministry of Health, for your regular updates. Brothers and sisters, friends all, as a government, we have nothing to gain and everything to lose by withholding critical information from you, the general public. No one is immune to this disease. That is why we must all act and react responsibly. Again, that backdrop, fellow citizens, I'm compelled to recommend the declaration of a limited state of emergency in order to give the medical authorities the necessary mechanism by which we can enforce the stemming of the community spread of COVID-19 virus. In this regard, therefore, I'm asking the Governor General to declare a limited state of emergency in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique for the next 21 days. This will take effect at 6 p.m. today and will put a limit on the wide range of normal activities. Citizens will be allowed between the hours of 5 a.m. and 7 p.m. every day to leave their homes only to conduct certain designated activities. In the United Kingdom, where the disease is now galloping on a significant pace, and from which our first case and most other cases now in the Caribbean have come, there are now limitations and new sweeping powers given to the police. The restrictions call for everyone to avoid contact as much as is possible. What we are doing in Grenada is nothing less but necessary in the battle against this dreadful disease. Fellow citizens, friends all, these measures are not meant to punish anyone, but they are designed to ensure that this disease does as little damage as possible to the Grenadian people and the Grenadian economy. Sisters and brothers all, I recognize and I call on the religious community in our midst who have constantly held us up as a nation. Now more than ever, we need your spiritual guidance and prayers. We need words of grace to cover our nation and our people. Sometime during the next 21 days, the entire nation will be called to prayer at an assigned date and time, whether we are at home or at work. I leave it to our religious leaders to design the modalities, and I thank them all in advance for their guidance. Sisters and brothers, before closing, I must salute all the healthcare workers in our country, or doctors or nurses, orderlies, maintenance workers, cooks, cleaners, administrators, all, those who work in the medical industry and who are at the front line of this fight. I thank and recognize the many volunteers, the St. John's Ambulance Brigade, the Red Cross, the Carriacou, and all those who have rallied to ensure in some way that COVID-19 is contained and ultimately defeated. I also want to thank the rank and file of our armed forces who at this time have the difficult task of maintaining law and order. I recognize the frontline workers in other sectors who served and those who continue to serve our population in the various economic sectors. I call on each and every citizen to be responsible, patriotic, and cooperative. Regulation will be announced immediately after this address, and I urge the general public to pay close attention and to observe the restrictions outlined. Let us all do our part to keep ourselves and the rest of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique safe. I thank you.
The proceeding was an address to the nation by Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell.
As you panic buy amidst COVID-19, keep proper food storage.
Government launches COVID-19 Economic Support Secretariat. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Tuesday, March 24th, 2020, I am Rakisha St. Louis. The Government of Grenada COVID-19 Economic Support Secretariat, CES, has officially been established to implement the economic stimulus package announced in the national address by Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honorable Keith Mitchell on March 20th. The measures are intended to promote business sustainability and alleviate any potential job loss as a result of the negative effects of COVID-19. The Secretariat, set up under the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for the implementation, coordination, and administration of the measures outlined by the Prime Minister, which will provide support in the first instance to the identified sectors. Information pertaining to the process for assessing the grant support for payroll and income, in particular, will be available by March 27, 2020. The Government of Grenada is committed to the efficient implementation of the economic stimulus package and look forward to collaborating with all relevant stakeholders. Minister for Trade, Industry, Cooperatives and CARICOM Affairs, Honorable Oliver Joseph, says Grenada is in a position to support various sectors now due to government's proper economic management and accountability. Minister Joseph was at the time highlighting the recently announced stimulus package to cushion the effects of the coronavirus. Addressing members of the media on Tuesday via online platform Zoom, he emphasized that Grenada does not have a central bank of its own and therefore can only control fiscal or taxation measures. Monetary policy control is governed by the Monetary Council of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECCB. Minister Joseph says the stimulus package outlined by Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honorable Keith Mitchell on Friday were fiscal policies and not monetary policies.
What you have here is fiscal measures, that is, measures of taxation that the government has control over in this fiscal policy. So every time you hear the word fiscal policy used, think about taxation and government's recurrent spending and the government raising revenue and spending. Monetary policy has to do with interest rate payment. The central bank role is to help control inflation. They determine monetary policy, the amount of money that we place in circulation. The interest rate is set by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. The value of the currency, as you know, we have a fixed currency rate with respect to the US dollar. The EC dollar is pegged to the US at a fixed rate of 2.7169. The only way this rate could change is that it requires a unanimous decision of the Monetary Council. Every member state must vote. Similarly, interest rates, the ECCB, these are monetary policy that's set. So the Minister of Finance could not announce a drop in interest rate, as you see happen in Trinidad.
Government's economic management strategies have placed it in a better position to provide financial bailout to various sectors.
Over the years, the last 5 years, the economy has been managed in such a way that we were able to meet our recurrent expenditure without going into overdraft or any loan facilities. It is managed in a way that the government was able to meet its recurrent expenditure on a timely basis. Every month, we meet our recurrent expenditure without having to resort to overdraft facility or loans. And therefore, the economy is in a strong position. There will be some negative fallout, but we are taking measures to ensure that assistance are provided to the various sectors.
The financial plan, which aims to minimize the risk of the pandemic, will be implemented for 3 months in the first instance following assessments.
The financial institutions have agreed in principle because the Minister of Finance cannot set interest rate for financial institutions. Whether it's the credit card rate or the on-lending rate, we do not have our own central bank, and therefore only the Monetary Council of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank could take these decisions. So the package is an all-inclusive package. Started with tourism sector, you went on to the small business support, talk about agricultural support, fisheries, and concessions to medical facilities, private labs. So it is a wide range of concession that is announced for the next 3-month period. Thereafter, it will be reviewed, and if necessary, other measures will be announced.
This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy. To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday song twice. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal. When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flexed elbow or a tissue. Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.
Welcome back. Government has made application to the International Monetary Fund to receive financial assistance in the face of the global pandemic, COVID-19. That announcement was made by Minister Oliver Joseph, Minister for Trade, Industry, Cooperatives and CARICOM Affairs on Tuesday. The IMF is among several international financial agencies that proposed financial help to countries facing the effects of the novel coronavirus. Minister Joseph said $50 billion is available to countries who are in need.
The International Monetary Fund has pledged $50 billion to help countries fight this COVID-19 and the situation that we are in. They have calculated what the fallout will be. Grenada has made application for funds from the International Monetary Fund, and we are looking at other areas where funding can become available to assist us in helping these various sectors to adjust, and so the government could continue providing all its services to our population, to all our citizens.
$14 billion in financial bailout was also provided by the World Bank for the global pandemic. Finally, in the news, in light of the Prime Minister's address on March 13th to suspend school in the first instance, the Grenada Union of Teachers is pleased with the government's decision to keep school in suspension for the while due to the COVID-19. Kenny James, Vice President of the Grenada Union of Teachers, also commends the measures put in place by teachers to ensure that students are occupied while at home. While the teachers are providing work, Mr. James says parents too should show interest in their children's academics.
Teachers have done their best to ensure that children have work that they can go home with, that they can do in the interim. And as parents, you have a responsibility to ensure that your child is engaged at home. So while there are teachers who have moved forward in schools with online initiatives, clearly as a parent, you cannot negate your responsibility to ensure that your child is engaged. Whether work was actually given, remember you spent some money on books, and these books have chapters that could be read and exercises that could be completed. And when they are completed, could be forwarded to teachers.
The unions in Grenada are urging their members to listen to the relevant authorities as they give necessary, valid information relating to COVID-19.
We also want the general public to understand this situation is one that has to unfold for us within our context. What am I saying? We would look at television, we would look here, there, we would see, we would hear. But we must be willing and be ready to listen to what the local authorities are saying to us on the issue, because they are aware as our local situation and would guide us accordingly. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all, but let's hear what they are saying to us. Let us hear the directions that they're giving to us. Let us remember that we have a responsibility as teachers, as Grenadians, as citizens in this crisis to do what we have to do in terms of monitoring at our community level.
That story just ended the national report for today, Tuesday, March 24th. Let's recap the top story. Government launches COVID-19 Economic Support Secretariat. On behalf of the entire news team here at the Government Information Service, I am Rakisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.